She's worked in K through 12 education since 2003. She's currently a TED resident. The TED residency is an in-house incubator within TED for breakthrough ideas. And she has a great talk on incorporating VR into the classroom in science education. She has gotten funding from the National Science Foundation and the Institute for Educational Sciences for Killer Snails, which has launched 7 products to date. And she's worked as an educational consultant with clients including the Relay Graduate School of Education and the Charter Network Accelerator. She's also worked for Uncommon Schools as Director of Organizational Learning. She earned her MBA from Columbia Business School and was awarded the Board of Overseers Fellowship, as well as worked as an Nathan Gancher Prize for Social Enterprise. She's also worked for the Harvard Business Review and The Economist, and she taught for 4 years for the Princeton Review. So I will move away from the podium here and make room for Jessica. Thank you. Oh, there's a question about whether there is a YouTube link. Mark, is that the case? Or are we working entirely from within Rubella right now? Oh, okay, thank you. We'll post that in the chat. That would be great.
All right, thank you. I have turned my mic back on. Is there still an echo?
I don't think so.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. And I'm thrilled to be here to speak with you all today. And Maya, that was a fantastic talk. And I'm planning to build right on what you were saying about how the future of VR is going to be more social. And I'm excited to be here talking with you about leveling up collaboration in multimodal VR science learning. So first, what are killer snails? We always get asked that because we do have a fairly dramatic name. Oh, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to show you the video for it or not. There is a video, but it may not play on here. They are these venomous marine snails that are so deadly, they can kill a 200-pound person in under 5 minutes. And our co-founder, Mandy Holford, has studied these. And her research now focuses on using the venom from these cone snails to create therapeutic drugs for humans. There's already one on the market, a drug called Prialt, and her lab is now working on a drug that is showing promise to treat liver cancer. And when I first learned about this, I was amazed at the kind of interesting, fascinating work that she was doing. And we thought this would be a great hook for students to learn about these snails that could kill humans, but are also being used to create drug therapies for humans. And so we focused on that as a hook for getting kids excited about science learning. And all of our games now focus on getting students excited about and inspired by science and putting students in the role of scientists. I also wanted to take a minute to kind of address the moment that we're in, that we are trying to level up the playing field, that this pandemic has affected students all around the world. The points that are on this slide, which will be available for all of you afterward, are fairly US focused, but I wanted to say that there are a lot of conferences currently that are free and that are trying to share resources like this one, and that there are a lot of online resources that are collecting and curating resources for remote learning, many of which include VR or XR aspects, and that this is also an interesting time for people who are trying to create new things, because there are funding opportunities both for teachers and educators who are interested in bringing new opportunities to their school through the CARES Act, as well as for people who want to create new products or new opportunities for students using funding opportunities like these small business innovation research grants. The products that I'll be showing you later, we had funded through the National Science Foundation SBIR grants and the Institute of Educational Sciences SBIR grants. So first, I wanted to talk a little bit about what collaborative VR is. So a useful definition from Zhang and Himolo Silver in 2016 is that collaborative learning is often defined as two or more people working together toward a shared learning goal. And this is an example, Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, which hopefully some of you have had a chance to play with, that definitely makes use of that. Furthermore, collaborative learning is distinguished from cooperative learning in that collaboration involves joint and symmetrical engagement of participants towards shared learning and problem-solving goals, whereas cooperation involves a division of work in which students typically work separately, performing a portion of the task that are later combined into a single product. And my premise is that there's a lot more cooperative learning that is currently being created in VR than collaborative learning. And a collaborative is hopefully where we'll go next. That's wrong direction. Let's see. So Minecraft VR is another extremely popular place that can be collaborative or can involve cooperation. And we've had students, including my own children, who have used this in both ways. And it's spread more and more around the world as a place where students can both collaborate and cooperate. There are many benefits of collaboration. You know, collaboration has been seen as a social process that relies on collaborative knowledge building, and it's considered a 21st century skill that enriches all fields, and particularly the STEM fields. And finally, collaborative learning strategies have a significant effect on student achievement in science. This more benefits include that learning relies on collaborative knowledge building, and it enriches the learning in all of the fields because it makes it more authentic. And that, trying to move this forward, and that this collaborative learning has this significant effect in science. Sorry, still getting used to the PowerPoint on the side here. So we asked ourselves, how can this form of media support STEM in the classroom? We know that students are losing interest in science, with studies showing that 57% of students in 8th and 9th grade believe that science isn't me. And we knew that teachers are looking for resources that are aligned to this next generation of science standards. So we developed our methodology, which began with a preparation phase where we work with 3 teachers who are full-time teachers and part-time work with us, as well as our science advisor, our co-founder, to fit content to our platform. And then we begin building, and we use an iterative design process where we build a portion, and then we test it in schools with students because we want it to be used in schools, and so we wanted to have the most natural environment for students to use. And then after we go, we have students fill out, they complete surveys about the process, we talk with them, and we also interview the teachers to keep improving it. And so that led to our development, which includes 3 key interlocking pieces. There is a digital science journal that each student uses on their own. There's the VR interactions. And then the VR interactions, when students go into the virtual world and collect data, that data is fed back to their own digital science journals. And then there's an assessment dashboard for educators, which includes both the quantitative and the qualitative answers, as well as the interactions that students had in VR and the length of time they spent interacting with each object. This is what it looks like. As you can see, the upper portion is a sample page from the Digital Science Journal. And in that journal is where they answer questions, they develop hypotheses, they construct models. And once they have done that, then they go into the virtual world, just as scientists go on actual expeditions to collect samples of temperatures, salinity, other readings, as well as to test to see if their models were correct. They'll develop their model in advance and then go into the virtual world. And then when they come back, they'll see snapshots comparing their model to what they actually saw. And then finally and they'll correct their model and incorporate based off of what they saw in the virtual world. And then finally down here, you can see this is what the educator assessment dashboard looks like from the class view. And if you clicked into any of these squares, then it lets you see the students' answers and leads them feedback, both stickers as well as writing in notes. Our goal of BioDive was for students to take on the roles of scientists and to see themselves as scientists. And that worked well. They did give us a lot of feedback saying that they could see themselves as a scientist because it seemed really fun. And we did a lot of testing with this. We piloted it with 836 students in the New York and New Jersey area before conducting a national pilot with 47 schools in 26 states. We have excellent preliminary data that we are still in the process of analyzing and hope to publish soon about increases between pre and post learning. And 100% of the middle school teachers who piloted this said they wanted to use BioDive again. So it is currently being used by students and teachers around the world. And because of the pandemic, we did add a web VR option to support students who don't have access to any mobile phones. We heard this outstanding feedback, and yet teachers wanted more collaboration because really when we did this, it was more of a cooperative model. What we built into it is that students can choose one of these 3 locations to go to, and depending on which location they went to, they gathered different data. And so when they had to work with partners to analyze the data together to find the patterns, but that's just a little bit of collaboration. Whereas teachers really wanted to have more opportunities for students to collaborate. So we started working on GeoForge. With GeoForge, we wanted to put students in the role of scientist while actively focusing on building collaborative opportunities into the experience. We began working on GeoForge in August of 2019, and we began bringing it to schools in November. And we visited schools in November, December, January, and February to begin this process. As you can see, that the experience that the students went through changed with the development. So that by the end, the last schools, they had the collaborative digital science journal where students were in groups in advance, and the answers that they typed into their own journals, once they hit the next button, would populate onto a page so that the students could see each other's responses. Then we began assessing the collaboration in VR, and with that, we used questions from the study on what happened in the groups questionnaire on the effects of cooperative learning. And when we did this, and these graphs are probably small, I apologize for that. It's probably a little bit hard to see. We did see that it was increasing, and I feel free to talk about my ideas while working with my classmates. I listened to my classmates talk about their ideas. My classmates showed me where to find or use things in the digital journal. I showed my classmates what to do. And my classmates helped me think about an idea. And my classmates helped me, and I helped my classmates. And all of those were going in the direction we wanted them to go in. In addition, our favorite question of did the GeoForge experience help you see yourself as a scientist? 84% of the students agreed. And once the students could see each other in VR, they started creating their own games. They were in rovers on different planets, and they would form lines, they would chase each other, they would plan to head in the same direction together, they would play bumper cars, and we could hear them having discussions while they were in the virtual world. So for the future, we know that when you give students the right tools for learning, the students will take ownership of it. And more folks are working on building collaborative experiences, leveraging these unique affordances of VR. And we are really excited to see what comes next. We know that a range of companies and researchers are all studying ways that we can improve this. And we are thrilled to be a part of that. With that, I will wrap up with my talk and open up for questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jessica. I wanted to ask a question about, when you talk about collaboration, this in, we're talking about science education and how collaboration can boost learning, the learning that takes place there. But this also speaks to the sort of holistic learning that XR facilitates, because obviously collaboration is a life skill, a soft skill. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we have done every time we went to schools, we would ask the students what they wished they could do in VR. And so much of what they wished they could do included more teamwork. They would say, like, we're already in teams. Why don't can we have like more of a shared goal where maybe we're racing to collect these samples instead of, everyone's going to be able to do it on their own. Maybe it's more of a team effort where people go in different directions and we each have a different role on the team to play. And so we started to build more of that into the experiences, because they did have a lot of great ideas about how they saw scientists as having, different roles for on a team, and they wanted that reflected in VR. Sorry, I'm seeing.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, we also had a question from Dennis Beck about whether some of this work was built on any past science-related VR builds, such as EcoMove.
We learned of that after we had started already working on it. So we have been looking to see what else is out there while we've been building, because we want to continue to build off of each other so that we're not recreating things. Some of the folks that we talked to about this included people like the Electric Fun Stuff team, who are already doing work in this space, and they had some very useful insights as to the design. And one of the things that they had said was that when they created the VR for schools, they did not do full 360 because so many teachers said they don't actually want their students rotating in a full circle. So they did like more of a 270, that, once you initially went in, then it was pretty much just linked to a smaller field of vision. We have also looked at other science platforms that have been doing work, including Filament Games and Shell Games, Filament has done an interesting one where they were designing for one student to use an iPad, or one student to be in a full VR set, and the other students to have iPads to be able to kind of follow along and ask guiding questions to help direct people. So we've been looking at a lot of those kinds of options. And one of the things that learning from Filament, when we designed this, we designed it so that expecting that there would only be one phone and Google Cardboard per every 4 students. The majority of the work that we do is in low-income schools. So we assumed there would only be like maybe one phone for every 4 students. So we built into the Digital Science Journal these dive deeper spots where if students are waiting for VR, then they could have other activities to do. With GeoForge, we planned for the students to be in VR at the same time. So we built it so assuming that like a team would go in at a time, and then the other students would be going into their dig deepers. So there would always be other opportunities for students to be engaged in some form of learning, even if they were not able to access the VR. And now that we're adding web VR options, we're aware that there may not ever be any waiting time, but we haven't done any research yet to compare results from students who use the web VR option versus the more immersive Google Cardboards. But we are curious to see if there will be a difference in terms of the collaboration that they do simultaneously.
Right, yes. And so I think you may have just answered this one question, which is, can you elaborate more on how the collaboration works within the VR environment? How does communication happen when using a Google Cardboard with cell phones? Is there anything more you want to add to what you just said, or is that?
So when we were in the classrooms, it was actually surprisingly easy to hear folks, and I did hear one about the classrooms. So when we were in classrooms, we would ask the teachers in advance to have the students grouped in, 2 to 4 seating, and the students would talk to each other. We did not do any kind of headphone usage. We did just listening to each other, speaking out loud. But it was actually surprisingly easy for the groups to focus just on each other because they were physically near each other. We are looking into ways to replicate that for WebVR, assuming that students are not going to be in the same physical location, and that if we want to make sure they're still able to hear each other, we're looking to replicate that, and they will probably need to, we would limit them to being only the 4 in that space at a time so that they only hear each other.
Yeah, so let's see. Another question here about culture and how the culture and viewpoint plays out in the collaboration process and how that is supported in the learning game design.
That's a great question. So I'll be honest and say that most of our culture is probably fairly US centric. With BioDive, students are going to other locations, so they are at least learning a little bit about the places where they're going. But with GeoForge, it has been a US-based team working on it. We do include both students and teacher culture very intentionally throughout our design and development process. It's one of the reasons why we are so frequently in schools, and one of the reasons that we, some of the most important people on our team are our teachers, who are giving us feedback about both the look, the feel, the content, what areas of content they feel are most challenging for students to grasp and that would be best suited to learn in VR. And when we are at the schools, we always ask the students in their surveys, as well as more informally while going through the process, what they liked about it, what they would like to change, what was confusing, and what they wish they could do. And so that's a way for us to build more student voice into the experience as we go.
Great. And yes, someone here is asking for advice on technology implementation troubleshooting. Do you have any advice to offer on that front?
One of the biggest pieces of advice I could offer is to be sure that teachers try the experience on a student computer at the school, because sometimes websites that are allowed on teacher computers on a school's internet are not allowed on the students' laptops. And then also, of course, to make sure that students are not are able to access all of the links. Teachers probably should go through in advance to see approximately how long it takes them. One of the things that we built in that we didn't do up for our first school set of pilots for the national pilots, when it was out in the wild by itself, one of the first things that we didn't realize we should have done was to provide teachers with student answer keys with like estimated timings for each. And so the first teacher who was like, wait, I need like an answer key that gives approximate timing on these. And I was like, oh, of course you do, right? We should have done that. So as a teacher tip, I would also say that y'all are amazing voices. Any feedback that you offer developers, there are so many developers like us that love working with teachers, and any feedback that you give us, we take to heart and we really work to build that in. So you have very powerful voices, and your students do as well. So any kind of feedback that you can offer developers, they at least should and likely will listen and take deeply to heart.
Great, fantastic. Well, we are near the end of our time, I'm afraid. There are some evaluation links that have been posted in the chat for Jessica's talk and for Maya's, which preceded it. But this is, this is really fantastic work, Jessica, and it's really important to be designing these tools in a thoughtful manner. so that they really can improve learning and can be used in the context in which for which they're intended. So thank you very much for all your work and for this enlightening talk. And audience, if you would please join me and give some applause to Jessica. Well done, well done. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much. And thank you, Mark and Jonathan and Karen, for having me. And I'm going to just dance my way off stage.
Awesome, awesome exit. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jessica. Okay, great.